Our candelabra is sitting on a surface of plastic so that it doesn't dry out, because the more we touch it, our hands dry it out. Also, it's got these supports of foam so that their tension is not put at the joins of the arc and the brace. The foam is not directly touching the clay, again, because we are trying to preserve the moisture and the water content in the clay. This is becoming a firm leather soft. The brace is a little bit softer. Eventually they will even out, and I have really scored it up quite aggressively where the arc and the brace join. And now I'm going to introduce a reinforcement coil from plastic clay rolled very thin. And so we want to score that as well, which might not be as easy to do. I'm going to press it a little bit so it's a little flat. I've got several here. Better to roll out all your coils and have them ready and have more than what you need than have to stop midway and roll more. So without breaking these very small, thin coils, I am scoring them. You can use a needle tool, you can use a serrated rib. And I am going to add water where moisture is higher, which in this case, the coils are a little softer, have more water than this area where the brace and the arc join. So therefore I'm adding the water to the more wet of the two pieces. And I'm gonna start in the middle here. It's very easy to do work when you have the banding wheel. It allows you to see 360 without actually touching the piece when you're moving it around, because this piece is still vulnerable. And so I'm gonna get in here and start at the middle and let the clay move away as I gently push it away from the middle. This is called backfill. It's also called a reinforcement coil. And this will act like a glue that just strengthens this seam. This join here is very important. It's fundamental to the success of the whole piece. If this piece detaches here, you don't have a candelabra. And there's a lot of stress in having to figure out where to begin, where to start over. So I start midway of the coil and move away from it. Now this coil is visible, and eventually we'll want it to become invisible, because invisible seam is a strong seam. Invisible joins are strong joins. Anytime you're applying pressure, like I am against this brace, you have to have a counter pressure or a backstop. Now this is a little bit, looks like roughing out. In other words, you can still see the seam, and you don't want to eventually, but remember, we work in phases. We work in stages. We don't ask the clay to do something all of a sudden. We have to ask gradually. Starting to look invisible, going to apply the work that you just saw me do there in just a moment. So there's all kinds of tools you can use, fine carving tools, use what works for you. At some point, I want this hard angle, perpendicular angle to return. I don't want this soft curvy thing in here, but I'm working my way to that. Clean up some of the extra clay that came from that reinforcement coil, that reinforcement joint, so that the delineation here returns. Sometimes just water on a paintbrush. So you can see the difference now between the area where the reinforcement coil has been applied, and now we have blended it right into the piece, versus the area where the reinforcement coil has been applied, but we haven't blended it into the piece, versus the side that has no reinforcement coil.